Welcome everyone. I'm Justin.
I'm Tracey.
And this is our first ever podcast on the Change It Up YouTube channel. And we're going to be sharing everything with you, the untold truths about full-time travel. So you can see we've got this fancy podcast set up here. This is our studio. This is a nice, sweet folding table in a kitchen that is almost completely moved out of.
Right.
Because we are leaving our house in 2 weeks here. So if it's echoey, that's why. But this is our fancy Change It Up podcast. So welcome to the first episode.
So Justin already touched on it. This year we decided to move out to pursue full-time travel, something we'd been wanting to do for a while. And there's really three reasons why we kept putting it off. And number one being, we didn't know how. Number two, the timing never seemed right. And then number three, we didn't take action.
Yeah.
So Justin, in regards to the first bucket, what do you think was the most daunting or maybe overwhelming part that kept us from knowing how to even start full-time travel?
How to start full-time travel? Mm-hmm. There's just so many different things to juggle, right? Like, what do we do at the house? How are we traveling? Where do we want to go? It's just when you put it all together, I get really easily overwhelmed. So when you throw it all down on a sheet and list it all out, I'm like, where do you even start? So I think that's where you've been really helpful in that regard, because you love organization and big vision and planning. And I'm more of the type, like, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. If Joey's watching this, just give me the ratio. Give me the ratio and I'll make the oatmeal. It's an inside family joke.
Right.
But yeah, just like, where do you actually start was the biggest question for me. So anytime I would start to think about the massive number of tasks that we had to get done, it would almost overwhelm me.
Yeah. And do you think with both of us working full time that just kind of the hustle of the daily grind and work duties had a part to play, and maybe why we didn't kind of figure out some of those details, or had a hard time figuring out some of those details?
How deep do you want this podcast to go? Isn't that, in my mind, that's kind of like the dilemma that most people go through, is like, how do you accomplish anything additional when you get in the daily grind of everything that you've already got going on in your life? It's like, how can I even add more to it? Mm-hmm. But since, we share helpful tips here, what's been huge for us is, again, and this isn't groundbreaking. People have been talking about this for centuries. Like, what you have to do is be very intentional with how you're going to accomplish whatever it is you want to accomplish. So it's Saturday today, and we actually have a pretty structured block schedule for the day of what we're doing when. Like, we just spent 45 minutes clearing the entire basement out, and then now we're spending this time recording this, and then after that we're going to eat lunch, and then we're going to clear out the living room. Like, we're very intentional, so it's all about trade-offs and scheduling things.
Well, I think that's going to get into kind of our third point there of just taking action. Once we get down to it, is just kind of figuring out how to take that action and drawing the line in the sand. So then one other hang up that we had in particular and seemed to be a struggle for us was, feeling like a truck and a camper and an RV was the only way, or maybe the best way, of full-time travel, especially with the pet. And what about that do you think kind of kept us stagnant?
I know that kept us stagnant for probably 8 to 12 months. Mm-hmm. I think it was finally I got to the point where you had asked me, is like, I really want to take action. And I was finally like, you know what? Like, anytime I think about traveling, my mind goes immediately to, okay, I gotta buy this really expensive camper. I have to buy an even more expensive truck. Then I have to learn how to even manage a camper, how to hook it up, how to take it, travel. I still have to pay for all of the campsites, and they're almost as expensive as a hotel, some of them. Mm-hmm. And so it would just be so overwhelming. And quick insight into the way that I work, everybody has their own limiting beliefs and response patterns. My go-to response pattern is to avoid. So if something is overwhelming or stresses me out, I just ignore it and avoid it. And that's why for, like, we've been talking about doing this for probably 2 years. Yeah, 2 years now. And we finally started taking action when we were like, you know what? The thought of getting a camper and a truck is just so overwhelming that this is part of the reason why we aren't taking action. And so we started revisiting it. And
well, then, yeah, even when you layer in, like, I love camping. You know, my family, they've all had campers and stuff off and on, so definitely...
Glamping. We say, I love camping. We roast s'mores over the stove inside of our RV. Camping.
Well, I do like tent camping as well, but yes, my family has always done glamping with campers. And there is like an allure to that I was always drawn to, but yeah, it really did. It just came down to the investment side of it and where we're at and like being uncomfortable. And then you start layering in like, yes, we work remotely, but we need Wi-Fi. Yeah. And, you know, I've seen some of my family members have struggles with that, and it's just kind of like those other stressors. Then you start layering in like maintenance or when something breaks down.
Screwed.
And neither of us are overly handy.
You're more handy than me. Yeah. No shame.
So yeah, there's just a lot there that I think just kind of kept us where we were at because we just thought that's the only way you had to do it. Yep. And so we just kind of kept putting it off, like you said, kind of like it's overwhelming. So we're just going to avoid it. Yeah. So I think that kind of rounds out some of the reasons behind bucket number 1 of why we just didn't know how. So moving into number 2, you know, with the timing just never seeming right, why do you think that was a major barrier to us pursuing the full-time travel?
The timing never seeming right? Mm-hmm. I think a lot of it plays back into what we just touched upon with it's like, and it's like why so many people put things off to the future. It's like, when this happens or when I have this, then I'll be able to do that. Mm-hmm. But life doesn't ever work that way. Right. It's all about figuring it out as you go. Mm-hmm. So in terms of the timing never being right, the timing's never going to be right.
No.
You know?
Yeah. And I think for us, like some of that in particular, like that feeling of it never being right. Like there were just some things going on personally, you know, your business is in its own infancy. So it was kind of like, oh, maybe in 2 years from now, it'll like be less stressful and everything will settle down. And it's like a news flash. It only gets busier.
Yeah, it just gets more stressful. Well, it's not that it gets more stressful. It's just like, again, it's like anything in life is you figure out you solve one problem, you solve one stress, and guess what? Another one freaking pops up. So it's like, if you want to do something, like those stressors are going to be there anyway, like figure them out while you're doing what you enjoy doing.
Yeah, and that really trickles into the financially prepared, you know, getting back to the truck conversation. Even family, you know, we're all around our family here. And then even like health issues, family health issues. Do we want to be around in case something happens? So there's just like all these different things that layer in that just kind of made us like, this isn't the right time.
Yeah. Moral of the story, do it now.
Yeah. All right. So I think the last barrier that really kept us stuck, and it's also probably the harshest reality of the 3 because it puts all of the responsibility back on us, and we mentioned it previously, is just that we just didn't take action. Yeah. And I think that's probably pretty common for a lot of people regardless of the situation, where they just want to do something, but you know, this or that happens, and what it all boils down to is, you know, just taking action. Yeah. And so do you have any thoughts on maybe why that was the case for us specifically?
Yeah, well, it's funny. It's like I encounter this all of the time with the people that I coach in my other business, and I think for us specifically, I mean, like, you're right. Most people do, like, they want to change, but then the obvious obstacle and barrier is you just don't take action. Like, if you don't take action, nothing's going to change. You're not going to get any results. I think for us, like, the 2 main things, as they are for anybody, is like, you need to know what it is you want to actually accomplish, and then you need to determine the plan in order to accomplish that. And because we were so kind of nebulous and inconsistent on what it was, we were very vague on our goal. We knew we wanted to travel more, but there's literally, like, I could probably list out 50 different ways that you can travel more. We didn't really decide that we wanted to travel full time. But once we decided, okay, we absolutely want to travel full time, we got really latched on to the RV way because that's the only way we knew. And then when we were finally like, well, we don't want to do that, how can we still accomplish our goals but in a different way? That's when we started to develop the plan that we're now enacting. That was a really long rambling answer of saying determine what your goal is and then brainstorm the different paths that can get you to that, because there's always multiple paths to the same goal. Choose which one is most viable for you, and then it's just about breaking it down into the steps. You could hire Tracey to do that for you. Just kidding. She's not available for hire.
Not yet.
Yeah, but I mean, brainstorm with other people and figure out what are your action steps to accomplish what it is you want to accomplish.
And yeah, all that's to say, like you touched on, like we did the due diligence. We were looking at RVs. We were trying to budget and figure out all this stuff, but it really just like started stressing us out because the financial side, it just didn't make sense. And then plus, and I think this is really relevant today. Like we were just so busy in our daily lives. It's like, why rush into this decision when we're comfortable where we are? Yeah. So it's like really trying to figure out, like, is this a priority for me?
Yeah.
And if it's a priority, then exactly what you said. It's like, what is the goal and how do we get there? And that really rolls us back in to my last point here, which is like, so looking back on the 3 challenges and kind of where we're coming from, what do you think finally got us to the point of being like, okay, this is happening, like drawing that line in the sand? What got us there?
So for anybody watching this, I have no idea what Tracey has prepared. I don't even know the question she's planning on asking me. So I don't know if you have a vision for where you want me to go with this, but I'm just going to share exactly the first thing that popped into my head that I think was not the only needle mover, the only line in the sand, but the one that really hit home for us was last fall. We went up to New Hampshire to help my dad and my stepmom. My stepmom was put on hospice care, and my dad and she lived up in New Hampshire by themselves. And so Tracey and I, because we both work remotely, we went up there for close to 2 months while she was on hospice care. And then she did pass away from cancer. And it was during that time that was the first most prominent thought that popped into my head when you asked that question. We were like talking a lot about it. My dad had said in the several weeks that we stayed after she passed, had said, you know, like, she was 63 years old. They were planning on doing a bunch of traveling once she retired at 65. And Tracey and I had been talking about traveling full time for 1.5 years at this point. We were like, you're never guaranteed tomorrow, let alone the next 50 years. So we were like, let's just do it. Like, we understand that there'll be stressful parts of it and that there's a lot to figure out as we go, but again, that's life. So why not do what you actually want to do now if you're able to?
Yeah.
Is that where you wanted me to go with that question, or did you have something else in mind?
No, that was the first bullet I put there. You know, it's like we've just heard, you know, that's one instance, but I've heard it other times where it's like, you know, we were waiting for retirement to travel. And I think a lot of people put things off for that someday or for retirement, and they never actually get there. When they get there, they're not in a condition to be able to do what they wanted to do. So it's just like figuring out how to make it happen. And I think that's what, I think it's the rich dad, poor dad guy who actually says, you know, don't say we can't do it, say how can we do it.
How can we,
Yeah. And I think that's really when we realize that the RV camper method might not be the only way to do it. Like, we weren't comfortable there. So how else can we make it happen? Yeah. And then I don't know if anybody out there, if you like watching full-time travel, but you like the Keep Your Daydream folks, I always like watching them. But one thing that they always said, whenever asked what's the best trailer or model of camper to do full-time travel, Trisha's response was always, whatever gets you on the road now.
Yeah.
And I think that's what like clicked with me. It's like, we've been doing Airbnb travel for a couple of years now, and it works well for us. Yeah. And I know there's some different opinions out there about Airbnb, so, you know.
But we like it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah. And I mean, in a future episode, we can maybe delve in deeper into why we like it, why it works well for us, and things like that. But yeah, that comment of like, just whatever gets you on the road now, it's like, we know this works for us, so let's explore, is this feasible? And then we actually like started doing the math, and we're like, yeah, if it is, and it might even be more so than what we were initially thinking once you start factoring in all of the payments and stuff.
Well, it comes back to the original points we were making. Is like, what is your primary goal? Was our primary goal to own a truck and an RV, or is our primary goal to travel the country and see new things? Well, our primary goal was to travel the country and see new things, so how can we make that happen now?
And I think that's exactly what Tricia says in response to it. It's like, whatever gets you on the road now, because this is just the tool to get you there.
Yeah, it's just a tool.
Yeah, it's just the tool to get you there. So I think that's kind of how we landed on the Airbnb situation, how we got to this point today. Like I said, I'm sure there'll be more details to come in the future, but to wrap this episode up, what do you recommend to others who are maybe in a similar situation or going through other struggles or barriers to maybe pursuing full-time travel, or really any like objective that they keep putting off or maybe they feel stuck in pursuing?
Yeah, the first thing that popped into my head was, again, like, if it's something that you actually want to have happen, not when you retire, but right now, then start to brainstorm it out. How might you be able to do it? And understand, of course, that it's going to come with trade-offs. You'll see a lot of the trade-offs that Tracey and I will have to make over the upcoming years or
Case
months.
in point, we've been living off of a folding table.
Here's
for
our
the past
fancy
2
podcast
months.
setup. Yeah, this is our kitchen table for the last month since we got rid of a bunch of furniture. But again, like, if your goal of traveling is more important than your need for, you know, the finer things in life, it's all about trade-offs.
Yeah, no, that's really good. So do you have any closing thoughts for the listeners?
Yeah, I mean, I would say if anybody wants to start traveling full-time and you're not sure what all the different potential options are, shoot us a message, comment on this video, or you can shoot me a message on Facebook. You could message Tracey on Facebook.
I might not respond.
Yeah. Make sure when you do message either one of us, be like, hey, I saw your Change It Up video, because otherwise I'll think you're a cryptocurrency marketer and I'll just swipe you. But yeah, shoot us a message, because we did a lot of different brainstorming of ideas of different ways to do it, and we'd be happy to share with you, like, these are some other options, and one of them might resonate with you. Like, Airbnbs, changing up where you're living every month might not sound that great to you. Maybe you want to travel, like, change it up even more often. Shoot us a message. We can share some options with you.
For sure. So yeah, we hope you enjoyed this episode outlining kind of our struggles on pursuing full-time travel. If you did and you'd like to hear more from us, be sure to like and subscribe, and like Justin said, drop us a comment if there's maybe something else that you're struggling with, or just anything that you think might be worth sharing with us or our listeners.